This man and his grandmother's spirit went to Midnight, Texas to escape debt. The grandmother said that the place was very safe, so they could stay there forever. But the man did not agree after hearing that, because for him, there was no safe place at all. After sitting in the car for 5 hours, they finally arrived. But the thing was that the people here looked extremely strange. The man stopped the car in front of a very old-looking pawn shop. When he entered, he discovered that this place was extremely noisy and somewhat scary. Every item here had a soul. They kept screaming and whining with all kinds of sounds. The voice in his head made the man very worried. Suddenly, someone called him outside the door. Before coming here, the man had contacted to rent a house. The landlord was this man named Bobo. Knowing that the tenant Manfred was a psychic, Bobo offered to waive the rent for a month. In return, Manfred would help him find his missing fiancée. But Manfred refused, saying he was just a fraud. That evening, Manfred went to the restaurant to get something to eat. Here he met a waitress named Creek. The restaurant was crowded, but it was filled mostly with travelers from nearby areas. Except for the cleric who wanted to eat alone, the residents of Midnight had their own private dining room. Manfred came here to live, so of course he was allowed to join. There were only 2 people at the table. This girl, Olivia, looked normal, but she was an assassin. What was more surprising was that her boyfriend Lemuel was a vampire. Seeing Creek being harassed by the Lucifer gang, Lemuel suddenly pressed Manfred's head down the table, making his face pale. Unlike other vampires, Lemuel not only sucked blood, but also sucked energy, afraid that his self wouldn't be able to control himself and rush out to destroy all the bad people over there. So Lemuel borrowed a little bit of Manfred's energy. Manfred was suddenly happy because he wasn't the only weirdo here. The next day, Manfred went with Creek to the town's fall festival. But as soon as he arrived, before he could greet everyone, a scream rang out. Bobo took the lead and ran to the place where the scream came from and saw a corpse. He was so desperate that he knelt down on the ground. Because this was his fiancée Aubrey, whom he had been looking for. A corpse that was about to decompose from being soaked in water was scary enough, but it slowly turned its head towards him, which was even more terrifying. Of course, only Manfred saw it. The police quickly arrived and sealed off the scene. Before finding the killer, the sheriff didn't let anyone leave town without permission. Seeing Manfred as a stranger, police officer Tina called back to ask. She didn't seem to like the place and warned Manfred that the people here were up to no good. For example, that girl named Fiji over there, rumored to be a witch. The sheriff was taking Bobo's statement. Bobo said that the 2 of them had had an argument and he had yelled at Aubrey to leave. He had thought Aubrey would just leave for a few days, but it turned out like this. Olivia showed annoyance that the body appeared here again. That night, Aubrey's spirit came back to ask Manfred for help. He agreed to help, but it had to be by his way. Manfred went to the church at midnight to ask for a bottle of holy water. The cleric suddenly appeared, which scared him, but in fact, the cleric had no bad intentions. On this side, the sheriff came to find Bobo. They had the preliminary autopsy report. Aubrey was shot in the stomach, but the cause of death was drowning. There was one thing Bobo didn't know, that Aubrey was married. 5 years ago, she married Peter of the Lucifer gang. Peter had been in prison for 3 years for assault, and today was his release day. Normally, the police showed no interest and let the town of Midnight handle things on its own, but this case was different. The sheriff told them to report immediately when Peter appeared. To perform the summoning ritual, Manfred sprinkled black iron powder in a circle and sprinkled holy water on it. Then he took out the Ouija board. Aubrey's spirit appeared. Manfred told her to sit down in front of him. Only saw Aubrey moved her hands back and forth. She gave Manfred 7 words. He asked if it was B. Cardox. Aubrey nodded. Suddenly, a spirit appeared beside him, another one in front of him, and yet another above his head. Beneath Manfred's feet, it felt like lava, and he hadn't expected this house to have so many dead souls. Manfred quickly ran out of the room before they took his body. He carefully sealed the room. The police came early in the morning to take statements from each person about Aubrey. The cleric said Aubrey often went to church, but to talk to God, not him. Police officer Tina went to Fiji's place, just asking little about Aubrey but mocking Fiji for being a witch quite a lot. Aubrey often visited Joe and Choi's shop to get her nails done. She was racist and even judged their relationship. Joe didn't like it, but he didn't judge her for anything. When Tina stopped by Manfred's house, he said he had just moved here and didn't know anything, but she didn't believe him. Afraid that Tina would barge into the room and find something she shouldn't, Manfred had to prove his abilities. Picado's was a canal, and the police were sending people to search it to see if there was anything related to the case. Tina said she had a magic ball, and maybe shaking it would find the culprit. At this time, when a gun was found, Manfred asked if Tina's magic ball could do that. When Manfred was brought back by the police, he was unfortunately seen by Olivia and a cat. Inside the house, Manfred asked his grandmother why she said this place was safe. The grandmother thought he would live quietly, but she didn't expect him to summon so many spirits. At this time, Olivia came knocking on the door. She asked Manfred who he was talking to inside. Manfred had just finished answering when Olivia suddenly punched him, causing him to faint on the spot. Because she suspected that Manfred was a policeman, Olivia stripped him naked to check the wiretap and GPS. Just then, Lemuel woke up, and the 3 people interrogated Manfred. They wanted to know why there were so many towns in Texas, but Manfred came here. Manfred said that his grandmother told him to come here, but now he was sure that his grandmother had deceived her grandson again. Unexpectedly, Lemuel was an acquaintance of Manfred's grandmother. Lemuel asked her how she was, and Manfred replied that his grandmother had died more than 5 years ago from throat cancer. His grandmother owed someone and they wanted to kill her, but she died first. Manfred had to pay all that debt. As for what had happened earlier, because the police had questioned him too much, he was afraid that his secret would be revealed, so Manfred had to help them a little to keep his peace. Midnight had been a refuge for supernatural beings for centuries. However, Aubrey's death was causing trouble for the whole town. If the police and the media made a big deal out of it, those who opposed them would come here. On the other hand, Midnight was located on a powerful mystical energy source. The boundary between the living and the dead was extremely thin here. That's why Manfred's grandmother had wanted him here. Lemuel apologized for misunderstanding him. Normally, this town was peaceful and quiet. At this time, at the pawn shop, 2 thugs came to find Bobo. They had heard that Aubrey had died, so they came here and said they knew his secret, wanting him to hand over his money and weapons. Bobo didn't care, and without waiting for him to act, Olivia acted first, taking down one of them. The other guy shot at Olivia, and Lemuel immediately broke his neck. Lemuel told Bobo to go home, and it was his and Olivia's turn to take the night shift. Lemuel asked the surviving thug who had sent him here. The thug said that Lucifer's son would never forgive them, but of course, Lemuel wouldn't be afraid. He decisively finished off the thug who didn't know this. Manfred went to the gas station to buy breakfast, and coincidentally met Creek there. While the two were chatting happily, Creek's father arrived. He was very strict with his daughter. Manfred was also a little scared after being warned. When he passed by the church, he saw something bleeding continuously on the cleric's car. Of course, Manfred didn't dare to gossip. Hightower's creditor called again. He knew he was in Texas and threatened to find out him soon. At this time, Creek came to find him. She apologized for what happened earlier. She had to act cold because she was afraid her father would cause trouble for Manfred. He invited her to sit in the car. Creek said that after her mother died, their family moved here. Her father's personality had changed a lot. Creek loved writing books. She waited until her younger brother Connor moved out. Then she would go back to school because she didn't feel uneasy leaving him at home with their father. In high school, Creek came here to go to school. She was often teased by her friends for living with the monsters, but she got used to it. By now, she considered them her family. She knew who they were, like Lemuel was a vampire, and he wasn't the only hero. Joe at the tattoo shop was very good and always protected everyone. She just didn't know what brought him here. Bobo never told his family where he came from, but he was kind. Creek was sure Manfred would never meet a more honest person. The cleric was also a mystery. She had seen him lift an entire tomb out of the ground with just one hand, and he was obsessed with his pet cemetery. As for Fiji, she seemed strange but not at all mean. It looked like she was talking to herself. Who knew she had a talking cat? As for Olivia, she had a lot of secrets and a lot of money. She and Lemuel were a couple. Besides, it was a mutually beneficial relationship. Olivia was a very angry person. When she was angry, she was full of energy and wanted to release it. Lemuel was an energy-draining vampire. The angrier Olivia got, the more she ate. Everyone was strange, but they were family. Manfred said he came from a nomadic family with a long tradition of fortune-telling. Psychic abilities were hereditary. Sometimes they were real, sometimes they were just acting. Creek wanted Manfred to read her future. He held her hand and said her lifeline was long. She had an interesting life. She would see the world, and she had met her soulmate who recognized how special she was. Just as they were about to kiss, the lights from the police car came on. It was definitely not a good thing for the police to come this late at night. The sheriff and Tina came to arrest Bobo for the murder of Aubrey. The gun found in Picado's was his. The loud noise attracted everyone's attention. Bobo didn't want to leave because he didn't kill the person he loved. More and more people from Midnight came. Everyone surrounded the police car, not allowing them to take Bobo away. Manfred also stood up to block the road. Fiji was furious. In front of everyone, she used her mind to distort the car, and even lifted it up, making it float in the air. The cleric advised her to give up. Tomorrow was a full moon. He wouldn't be able to help if anything happened. Manfred also advised Fiji and said he would take Bobo home. Fiji finally stopped. The car returned to its original shape. Tina was scared and urged the sheriff to start the engine, and then stepped on the gas to run away from this place. When Manfred got home, Hightower called again to demand money, but this time, he didn't answer. He had to deal with the problem first. His grandmother advised him not to live alone anymore. Midnight would protected each other. Let's opened up to them and found a family. What happened last night was a prime example. Besides, he didn't need to pretend to be a normal person there, just showed them all who he was. Everyone was discussing how to get Bobo released and get away from the police safely when Manfred arrived. To clear Bobo's name, he needed to talk to Aubrey, but right now his house was filled with so many spirits that needed to be driven out, leaving only Aubrey behind. Lemuel had to go back because the sun was about to rise, so Fiji and Joe helped Manfred do it. The gun the police had found was registered to Bobo, but that didn't prove he was the killer. Tina had always hated Midnight, and she finally got a chance to make the person there suffer. She said she had a way to make Bobo confess, but the sheriff didn't know she had already brought Bobo into the room where the Lucifer gang was waiting. Midnight was a land of extraordinary ordinary people. No one would run there for no reason, and Bobo was no exception. He defeated all the henchmen and warned them to tell Peter not to bother him anymore. Although the moon had not yet risen, the cleric still went into hiding. Before leaving, the cleric told Olivia not to hesitate, no matter what happened, and make sure no one was hurt. Then she closed the lid of the cold cellar and locked it with chains. On this side, Manfred had already returned home. Although Fiji and Joe couldn't see anything, the coldness during the day clearly indicated something was wrong. There were countless shadowy figures of spirits on the ceiling, and beneath the floor, a growl could be heard with a red glow appearing. Both Fiji and Joe saw this. At this moment, Manfred sensed that Aubrey was here. She was standing in the kitchen. Manfred said that Bobo was captured. If he wanted to save him, Aubrey had to tell Manfred about the murderer. To do that, Manfred would lend Aubrey his body to possess. Manfred saw a car coming, then Aubrey was attacked and dragged to the stream. Before she was completely submerged, she only had time to see the murderer wearing a skull mask. Manfred's mouth spat out some water. Fiji and Joe quickly helped him outside. Manfred woke up in Fiji's house. It had been a long time since he had slept so deeply. Because this house was enchanted by Fiji, all kinds of ghosts were blocked outside the door. Manfred told Fiji what he saw. Fiji thought the murderer was someone from Lucifer's son. Wearing masks and riding motorcycles were their characteristics. These people were racists, and Aubrey married one of them. Poor Bobo didn't know anything and accidentally brought disaster upon himself. Fiji told Manfred to go to the sheriff and report it. Since he had helped them find the murder weapon, his words would be more valuable. At least they could bring Bobo back to Midnight. Although it was a bit confusing, he was now a neighbor, a resident of Midnight. If Manfred helped them bring Bobo back, she would help him chase away those ghosts. Maybe while calling Aubrey's spirit, Manfred accidentally called the demon under the floor. Midnight was the curtain between two worlds. Whatever it was, they had to bring it to the other side. Joe would take Manfred to the police station just in time to meet Creek while she was filling the gas tank. The two of them only talked for a few sentences, and the father looked at Manfred with an unpleasant look. At the police station, Manfred told the sheriff everything Aubrey had seen. She was wandering down the street, pondering the situation with Bobo when a truck appeared. Feeling bad, Aubrey pulled out a gun to threaten but was attacked from behind. The killer took the gun and used it to shoot her. After that, she woke up and found herself lying on the back of a pickup truck. The killer threw away the gun and dragged her to the edge of the river. There were many bones there. The killer left her there for 3 days until she drowned. The sheriff suspected Manfred was the killer, so he could tell such details. But if he was the killer, why would he come here? Manfred was sure that besides the gun, there was something else the killer wanted to get rid of. If they continued to search, he thought they would have new clues. Although the sheriff did not take any action, Joe had faith that it would work. After the two left, the sheriff did as Manfred said. Tina was leading some of the Lucifer gang to the hospital for bandages when the sheriff called her back. Soon after, Tina was suspended from duty by the sheriff. The moon had risen, and inside the dark basement, the cleric began to transform. Fiji asked Manfred to prepare a mirror for her. Using mirrors during seances was quite dangerous, but that was the only way she could see the ghosts. After hanging a demon net in front of the door, Fiji opened the door and asked Manfred what he saw. The ghosts in there were worse than the previous days. They started to surround Manfred because he was the one who could help them return to this world. If he was possessed, it would be very dangerous. Fiji told him to wait outside. Manfred also wanted to get out of here. Since she was little, the rumors about Midnight had been ingrained in Tina's head that the people there were evil and dangerous. Angry that the sheriff didn't believe her, she drove to Midnight in the middle of the night to find evidence. Hearing strange noises in the church basement, Tina curiously went to check. She cut the chain and went down to the basement only to see the cleric's clothes lying neatly on the ground. And a tiger was eating a cow, not only killing herself but also harming the whole town. Tina's screams were heard by Manfred. When he found her, she was just a corpse thrown on a tree. Worried about Creek, Manfred went to the restaurant to find her. At the same time, he warned Madonna that something was killing people outside. But Madonna said that Creek worked at the gas station tonight. Creek didn't know that the Grim Reaper was lurking outside the door. As soon as Manfred ran over, the cleric jumped past him. Creek hurriedly led him to the garage, where they encountered the cleric. They had to turn back. Creek conveniently caused a car to run over him. Seeing that he was about to break free, the two quickly ran back to Manfred's place. The full moon not only affected the cleric, but also made Lemuel weaker than usual. He went to Olivia, asking her to replenish his energy, but Olivia said she was tired of guarding the shop and refused. Suddenly, Lemuel smelled blood, a lot of blood. Thanks to that, they were able to chase the cleric away in time, freeing Creek and Manfred. Manfred didn't know who released the cleric, and police officer Tina was already dead on the tree. Lemuel looked at the blood dripping all over the tree and felt regretful. Only when he reminded him did Manfred remember that he was injured. Creek quickly took him to Madonna. Olivia went home to get a weapon to fight the cleric. The bullets were made of silver. If it grazed his skin, he would die. But Midnight's safety was paramount. That was also what the cleric wanted. Manfred was quite surprised that Madonna knew how to sew up wounds. Madonna said that living in Midnight, he should learn to protect himself and his loved ones. She also warned him that he should be considerate to Creek or else he would get into trouble. Only then did Manfred Manfred remember that Fiji had been in his house for quite a while. The house was flashing continuously, and the fire was constantly burning. After a while of chaos, the house returned to a state of stillness. Fiji breathed a sigh of relief, so the exorcism was done. But Manfred looked behind her worriedly. The demon net was covered with black mucus, proving that there was still something extremely evil. But Manfred did not see any ghosts here. Only then did they discover that the red light under the floor was still there. Suddenly someone called Fiji, saying that it wanted her. Manfred didn't hear anything, and before he could run, he was blown out by some force. The door was locked, and Fiji was screaming from inside. Manfred broke the door and rushed in, only to find her floating, as if being controlled by something invisible. Fiji was hung on the wall. Manfred wanted to pull her back, but it only caused her more pain. Suddenly he saw Fiji's skirt lifted up, and looking in the mirror, he saw a demonic arm touching her thigh. Manfred calmed Fiji down and ran to the car. He rummaged through his grandmother's old things and took away his great-grandmother's skull. She was very powerful. She would definitely help. Manfred held the skull out toward Fiji. He then prayed to his ancestors, asking them to help save Fiji from this perverted demon. The skull suddenly turned into a bright golden light, successfully driving the demon back to hell. His great-grandmother's skull also turned into ashes. Manfred quickly smashed the mirror. He checked and saw that there was nothing left, so he was relieved. The demon net was also clean again. Now the house was truly free of demons. Fiji felt dirty and wanted to go take a bath, but Manfred stopped her because the cleric was out there. Olivia was driving to the neighborhood to find him, while Lemuel went to the riverbank. Fiji said that she and Manfred would go check on the farm. After a while, Manfred saw traces of the cleric. Fiji called Olivia and told her to come here right away. There were dead animals in the forest, and the two were looking around when the cleric appeared. Olivia arrived, and Lemuel quickly arrived. Neither Fiji nor Manfred wanted to shoot when there was no other way, so Lemuel rushed to wrestle with the cleric, although it was a bit difficult at first. But Lemuel finally succeeded in making him faint. The first rays of sunlight appeared, and the cleric returned to his human form. The three of them silently watched the whole process. Manfred thoughtfully draped a coat over the cleric's bare body. Even though he had transformed into a beast, he knew everything he had done. The sheriff followed Manfred's lead and found a coat belonging to Lucifer's son downstream. It had hair on it, which was confirmed to be Aubrey's, so they let Bobo go. At present, Peter was Aubrey's husband and was under suspicion. The cleric had buried Tina next to the church. It had been a long time since he had killed someone. Tigers liked to be alone, but people were the opposite, and it was hard to reconcile the two. That was why he had become a cleric, and that job had brought him to this land. He had considered this place his home, and he didn't want to lose it. Olivia comforted him, saying they wouldn't let that happen. Normally, a cow would have satisfied his hunger, but last night had been different, and that had scared him. Fiji had heard that demon calling her again. She had looked in the mirror and seen nothing, just as Bobo had returned to thank her. He had been very grateful. Someone who could stand up to the police for him was very precious. However, as long as Aubrey's husband was still out there, this matter would not be over. Just because Bobo had been freed, the sheriff's car had been blown up that night. The devils were being drawn to midnight. The devils in humans, and the devils from the supernatural things. And this was just the beginning. The stronger the devils became, the more the veil between the two worlds wore away, until there was nothing to stop them anymore. But Joe had heard of a prophecy. An army would rise up to fight the devils and seal the veil forever. That army would be led by a man gifted with psychic abilities. A man who could act as a bridge between the living and the dead. Joe thought it was Manfred. More than 200 years ago, Lemuel had been a slave. Unwilling to endure the brutal torture any longer, he had enticed another slave to escape, but the other slave had been afraid of being caught and executed, so he hadn't dared to go. That night, Lemuel escaped alone. While wandering in the grasslands, he met the mysterious man in the rumors. It was rumored that he could give them freedom, and Lemuel had accepted the trade-off. After being bitten by Jack on the neck and drinking his blood, Lemuel became a vampire and possessed superpowers. Sometime later, Lemuel discovered that his friend had been executed. In a fit of anger, he and Jack went to find the plantation owner and killed all his noble friends. That was Lemuel's most bloodthirsty time, and it also made him crazy because of this red liquid. From the first time they met, Creek and Manfred fell in love. Even having an overprotective father couldn't stop Creek from being with the one she loved. Of course, she couldn't let her father find out. Manfred wanted to take Creek home, but she refused. Tonight was not a full moon, so the town had nothing to worry about. But as soon as Creek left Manfred's house, she encountered a long-haired man. Sensing danger, Creek tried to stay calm and warn him. Suddenly, he opened his mouth to reveal his sharp fangs. Lemuel immediately appeared to save her. Lemuel was about to bite the other person when he discovered that this person was Jack. The people in town heard Creek scream and came out to see. Lemuel introduced Jack to everyone. Jack said he was passing by for work, would stay for the night, and would continue his road. Everyone just stared at him and his friends behind him without saying anything. Lemuel took Jack to the pawn shop to get to know Olivia. The last time they met, the two had a little conflict, so they no longer had anything to do with each other. By the way, Jack also wanted to ask for a chance to make peace today. Olivia didn't like this guy. She reminded Lemuel to tell him the rules. Vampires were not allowed to touch Midnight's people, people or anyone in the vicinity. Jack took out a blood bag and said that Lemuel had a positive effect on him, so he no longer killed. Lemuel was very happy to hear that and was no longer on guard against him. Olivia asked Lemuel if he believed Jack. Lemuel only said that he owed Jack his life. If Jack had changed, he deserved recognition. No vampire would dare come to midnight because of Lemuel. But now that such a group had appeared, it wasn't a good thing. Although Lemuel vouched for Jack, humans were still food for vampires. They couldn't let their guard down. The cleric suggested that when there was an incident, everyone should gather at the church. But garlic and holy water didn't help in this case. Silver poisoning could weaken them, but killing vampires required the sun or a wooden stake through the heart. Olivia and Lemuel went to the restaurant to meet Jack's group. A woman rushed up to hug and kiss Lemuel passionately, making Olivia very angry. She was Pia, Jack's lover. Olivia felt disgusted and had found an excuse to leave, leaving Lemuel to talk to his friend. Manfred convinced Olivia to go with him on their bus to find out more. He explained that he could talk to the dead and that vampires created the dead. If there were ghosts on the bus, they would know what Jack's group was planning. The bus was very clean. However, at the back of the bus, there was a girl whose blood was being drained. Manfred had thought the girl was captured, so he woken her up and they run away together. But the girl refused to go and said she was hitchhiking and only gave a little blood. The two went to tell Lemuel. He replied that normal vampires still needed blood to survive, and blood donors were the most humane way, a voluntary source of food. Jack explained that the girl's name was Tiffany. She would be fine after a short rest. Pia even made a point of saying that Olivia wouldn't understand since they weren't of the same species. Lemuel didn't want to create tension between the two sides, so he didn't speak up to defend anyone. Manfred's grandmother was like everyone else. Lemuel was trustworthy, but his kind weren't. The pawn shop had only the haunted dolls, and the bow was the only thing that worked. Bobo brought it to Fiji's house. At least, she had something to protect herself. Except for Creek and a few others, most of the other mortals in Midnight didn't know what the supernaturals were like in town. Neither did Connor and her father. However, the vampires could be dangerous at any time. Creek had to tell her younger brother the truth, so he could be prepared. The cleric saw Joe at the church for the first time. No one came here to find companionship because they only sought the sacred when they wanted to confess. It was the first time Joe revealed his identity to anyone because as a cleric, he would keep his secret. He was a fallen angel, living in seclusion with his lover. Joe said that vampires were only the beginning of the threat. The veil beneath Midnight was slowly fading and devils were being drawn here. That was why after the last animal transformation, the cleric's hunger was not satisfied. Joe and Chewie were about to leave. At least, someone had to know the truth. At that point, everyone had only two choices. One was to leave, two was to fight. Manfred was in the store buying some things to make weapons for self-defense when the lights suddenly went out. He followed the light outside to the door and slipped and fell on the blood of the clerk. Suddenly a vampire rushed in. Manfred grabbed a pencil and stabbed it in the chest, but it wasn't deep enough. He had to use his foot to kick it one more time to finish it off. Manfred then quickly ran to the church to inform the cleric. Maybe they had already started to act. They had to warn everyone. Fiji didn't worry too much when she heard about it because the dead couldn't enter her house. However, to be safe, Bobo still told her to find supernatural weapons. Only a bow and some wooden stakes weren't enough to fight. Fiji said that witches like her had plenty of supernatural weapons. Manfred called Creek to tell her the news, but her father hung up. Olivia was getting bored with Pia's boring stories when Jack asked the two women to let him talk privately. Lemuel asked him directly why he was here. Jack said that Midnight had called him. The energy here was stronger than before. That's why he wanted to stay. Not being able to call Creek made Manfred very worried. Then his grandmother told him an old story. The reason why Lemuel was different from his kind. In Midnight in the 50s, Lemuel had lost interest in Jack and Pia's bloodthirsty feasts. To stimulate his bloodlust, they had given him a little girl. But Lemuel really hadn't wanted to kill anyone anymore. He had told her to wait until tomorrow morning and sneak out. He even had planned to go with her to leave the world under the sunlight. Realizing Lemuel's specialness, the girl was also Zelda, Manfred's grandmother. Zelda had given Lemuel the power to become the ultimate vampire. Lemuel flatly refused Jack's offer to stay. Midnight was his family, and he would do anything to protect his family. It seemed that Jack had guessed the answer, so he didn't react. He poured 2 glasses of fresh blood and raised his glasses as a farewell. Lemuel trusted him, so he drank without any doubt. But he didn't see that Jack didn't drink a drop because the blood was mixed with silver. Seeing Lemuel fall, Pia wanted to kill Olivia to drink her blood. Unexpectedly, Olivia launched a surprise attack and then kicked Pia in the heart, killing her instantly. Jack was about to rush over when Olivia shot him with a silver bullet and injured him. He went crazy and ordered the vampires to massacre the town. Most of the people were gathered at the church, but there were still a few people who hadn't arrived yet. Because Creek didn't answer the phone, Manfred went to her house to find her. Her father saw him and chased him away, refusing to listen to any explanation. Manfred had to punch him unconscious. They had to get to a safe place first. However, the vampires were standing all over the street. They blocked the entire path, not letting them pass. Manfred was attacked. Luckily, Creek was quick to stab him in the heart. Unable to go to the church, Manfred had to return home. When When everyone ran inside, Manfred was chased by a vampire from behind. However, the vampire was knocked back when it touched the doorframe. Manfred recalled that this house had been spelt by Fiji. Fiji had a quartz stone commonly known as the dawn crystal. Shining a light behind it, it could emit a light similar to sunlight. This thing was indeed very useful. Fiji happily hugged Bobo, but realizing that she was being rude, she let him go. Suddenly, there was a strange noise at the back door. They thought it was a vampire. It turned out to be Olivia. She ran to the church, but there were too many vampires, so she had to stop here. Lemuel was poisoned. If they didn't do anything, the vampires would kill him. Bobo had an idea: trick them into gathering together and shine this homemade lamp on them. Jack chained Lemuel behind a window. When the first rays of sunlight hit, it would kill him. Lemuel regretted not killing him when he had the chance. That year, he convinced Jack to live a different life, without killing, without bloodshed. Unfortunately, he didn't care about those words. After seeing two vampires turned into mummies by Lemuel with his own eyes, Jack changed his mind and wanted to possess that power. But there was only one chance, and he lost it. Fearing Lemuel's power, Jack patiently led his vampires away from midnight. Olivia secretly returned to the pawn shop to get a bigger flashlight, but Jack had already sent someone to guard there. After all, the power of a normal person and a vampire was very different. She promptly took out the flashlight and burned the guy in the blink of an eye. Olivia's leg was injured, and she couldn't return to Fiji's place. Bobo informed Manfred. Creek was worried that if they didn't do anything, everyone wouldn't be able to hold on until morning. Seeing his grandmother, Manfred suddenly had an idea. He returned to his room to get his things, then called the cleric. Manfred was willing to risk his life to save Lemuel, but to succeed, he needed intervention from many directions. He held a box and rushed into the middle of the vampires and demanded to see Jack. He said that he was Zilda's grandson, and that the thing inside the box could help him become the ultimate vampire like Lemuel. Lemuel heard and wanted to stop him but couldn't. From the cleric's church, he could see the vampires in the darkness gradually appearing and surrounding Manfred, including Jack. The two sides negotiated for a while. Finally, it was decided that Manfred would give the box if Jack let Lemuel and the townspeople leave alive. While all eyes were on them, in the dark sky, Joe was flying to the highest place in town. Just as Jack opened the box and saw nothing, he was about to rush to bite Manfred when Joe turned on the light. The vampires were burned to ashes, not a single one left. The crowded streets were filled with only Manfred. But it was almost dawn. Olivia didn't have the strength to break the chains. Lemuel was the same. She had no choice but to break the glass and injure herself so that Lemuel could drink her blood. When the sun rose, he managed to escape in time. Everyone left their hiding places. Everyone was tired from not sleeping all night. One by one, everyone went home to sleep to regain their energy. Lemuel was surprised that Olivia knew his past, but still chose to stay by his side. Because they were so touched, the two of them started kissing passionately again. Bobo went to find Fiji to talk about the hug last night. She tried to explain that she was just momentarily emotional. Besides, being with him was very comfortable, so she had been carefree like that. Bobo said that he was too. Fiji had a secret crush on Bobo, so when she heard that, she thought that he had feelings for her too. But when the two hugged again, Bobo said that Fiji was really his best friend, which made her try to smile but feel very sad inside. The vampires were all dead. Tiffany had to ask someone to leave town, and finally a car stopped, but she was attacked by the driver. The thinner the curtain, the stronger the evil energy became, attracting more demons to midnight. Yesterday was a vampire, so what will it be today? On the way out of midnight, a young man came across someone sitting on the side of the road who had just sold his father's Rolex watch for some money. The young man immediately asked the girl to go out with him. After the blonde girl got in the car, after driving for a while, she said that she had something to show the young man, so she told him to pull over. The young man thought he was about to receive a gift, so he eagerly did as he was told. But in just a few seconds, he became the blonde's delicious breakfast. Manfred had saved Creek's family from the vampires, but her father had not changed his views on him, so they kept their relationship a secret from him. However, whether or not they were open about it was not a problem for Manfred. It was even more exciting to be secretive like this. As soon as Creek left, Manfred received a voice message from his creditor, Hightower. The news of the sheriff's murder was on the news. Bobo was sure that Peter did it. The police couldn't find him, but he knew that the Lucifer gang often gathered at the cartoon bar. Fiji knew what Bobo wanted to do, so she immediately reminded him that he was being held on suspicion of murder, and everyone had risked their lives to get him out. Investigating Peter now would only make the police suspect Midnight again. They didn't want to drag this problem further. Bobo apologized for not thinking it through. Fiji changed the subject and invited him to dinner at her house that night. At that time, a customer came into the shop. The woman asked if anyone had pawned a Rolex watch nearby. Bobo asked if it was the guy driving the red Cadillac. Then he took out the watch and showed it to the woman. She said it was her younger brother's, and he had gone somewhere, causing the family to worry. Bobo couldn't help, but he introduced someone to the woman. Manfred had a headache over money. The creditors were coming soon, and he still hadn't earned enough. Online work didn't make much money, and VIP customers didn't pay a large sum. The grandmother told Manfred to rest assured, as she had a feeling he would have a customer soon. But Manfred thought his grandmother was just trying to comfort him, so he played Hightower's voice message for his grandmother, and a piece of music played. Hightower said that it would be the last sound Manfred would hear before he died. Hearing this, Manfred was extremely confused, but his grandmother remained calm. Suddenly, there was a continuous knock on the door. Bobo introduced the woman who came there to meet Manfred to find her younger brother. Although she didn't believe in psychics much, she thought it was better than nothing. Manfred said that finding a missing person was a bit difficult, but when he heard the price of $5,000, he immediately agreed. Fiji invited Olivia to come over for dinner that night, but Olivia had to leave town. Moreover, she didn't want to prevent Fiji and Bobo from being together. This was Fiji's chance to soothe Bobo's broken heart and take it. To do so, Fiji had to first take off her peasant dress and replace it with a dress that was more than a friend. To connect with the missing person, Manfred needed an item that meant something to that person. The woman gave him her younger brother's pinky ring, which her brother had pawned to the woman when he borrowed money. Manfred lit a candle and focused his mind on the ring. After a while, the younger brother's spirit was summoned, which proved that he was dead. Seeing Manfred staring behind her, the woman was extremely confused. The younger brother saw his sister and flew over to say that if he had listened to her in the first place, it wouldn't have turned out like this. He shouldn't have let that blonde girl get in the car at that time. Manfred asked who the girl was, but the woman's younger brother didn't know. He was dead and had lost his Cadillac. At the same time, the blonde girl was still wandering outside midnight, hunting for prey. This time, she pretended to have a car breakdown and lured a guy into a public restroom to eat him. Olivia was outside on a mission. A client paid her to take revenge on an embezzler. For the embezzler, it was just a little money, but for the victim, it was a house, a marriage, and medical bills. Just because of greed, he destroyed a happy family. After finishing the job, she transformed into someone else and left as if nothing had happened. As a professional killer, Olivia's senses were very sharp. She knew perfectly well whether she was being followed or not. The man denied it and said he hadn't done it. He tried to drive away, but Olivia struck first. Manfred went to several bars near midnight to look for the blonde. He didn't know that someone was following him. That night, after Bobo got off work, he called Fiji and said he would come over as soon as he got changed. However, when he got home, he found that the house had been made a mess by someone. There was also a Lucifer gang symbol on the wall. Bobo hurriedly ran out and checked the door hidden under the car. Luckily, they didn't find it. When Olivia returned to midnight, Lemuel immediately ran out to help her carry her things. Unexpectedly, when Lemuel saw the body, he wasn't too surprised, as if this was something Olivia usually did. Manfred passed by a public restroom and saw a Cadillac. There was blood on the driver's seat and blood stains on the trunk. He was about to tell the woman who hired him when a woman's humming came from the restroom. A blonde girl had blood on the corner of her mouth, and a man lay motionless next to her. The blonde demon smiled and slowly approached, wanting to suck Manfred's blood. Just as she bared her sharp teeth and wanted to rush forward, Manfred hit her in the stomach with a stick. He then quickly blocked the door and turned around and drove away. The dinner was gone. The blonde demon yelled angrily. The food on the table was almost cold. Fiji didn't know what Bobo was wearing that took so long. The cat immediately said Fiji was fooled, but after hearing that, she wanted to starve the cat. At this time, a phone call came in. Bobo said he couldn't come, making Fiji very disappointed. At this time, Manfred came to ask for her help. Everyone gathered at the restaurant. Manfred described the appearance of the blonde demon for Joe to draw. In addition to her mouth like a hellhole with all teeth, she also had a tattoo of a deathly web on her shoulder. Lemuel found it a bit strange because he had not seen a demon around here for over a century. This demon was an ancient supernatural creature, specialized in hunting, but living in seclusion, so it was very rare. They had an immortal seductive guise to attract prey, but the demon only ate bad men who had caused others to suffer. It had chased to Manfred, which meant he was not a good person. However, the problem that needed to be concerned about now was why it came to midnight and acted so boldly. Joe and Shui looked at each other silently because the demon was leaving behind a pile of corpses and they would bring trouble to the town. They needed to stop the demon before the police found out. According to medieval legend, to destroy the demon, they needed the breath of a dragon. But where could they find a dragon in this era? Suddenly, Fiji had an idea. She created a liquid called the Holy Makeup Remover, which could wash away the demon's beautiful appearance, causing it to lose its true form and no longer be able to seduce anyone. There was a party at the cartoon bar tonight, and the demon needed men, so it would definitely come there to find prey. Olivia was questioning her stalker. At first he denied it and said that no one hired him, nor did he follow her, looking very wronged. But in the end, he couldn't bear it anymore, and confessed that Olivia's father hired him. He said that she had run away from home, and he wanted to know if she was okay, and if so, to reply to his letter. That kind of father, Olivia would rather die than see him again. At this moment, Olivia's anger had reached its peak. Fortunately, Lemuel appeared in time. He hugged her and started to suck her energy. Only then would Olivia feel better, so that she could temporarily forget about this. He told Olivia to go hunting demons with everyone. As for the stalker, they would deal with it later. Inside the bar, Fiji told everyone that they just needed to put a drop of herbs in the demon's mouth. They agreed that when they found it, they would drag the demon to a secluded place before anyone noticed. Bobo still didn't give up on finding Peter, so when he saw Lucifer's son's men, he followed, leaving Fiji alone and angry. Inside the back room of the bar, Bobo stormed in and warned them. He knew that Peter had killed Aubrey and the sheriff, so he told them not to bother him. The gang leader scolded him for being a traitor to his family, with no self-respect, to the point of living with abnormal people. Bobo was so angry that he broke the cue stick and was about to stab him when Fiji arrived in time to stop him. Fiji was really angry with him, risking her life to go into their place alone, even intending to kill someone right in front of her. But when she heard him apologize and compliment her on how beautiful she was tonight, her anger immediately disappeared. She quickly made an excuse to find the demon to dispel this embarrassing atmosphere. Manfred was sitting with Creek at the bar when he spotted a blonde girl, but when he approached, he mistook her for the wrong person. The girl's boyfriend saw this and immediately came forward. Manfred immediately made a sad face and said that he thought she was his ex-girlfriend because he couldn't forget his ex-lover. He kept seeing her everywhere. It had been 5 years and it was still the same. Suddenly, the boyfriend patted Manfred on the shoulder and comforted him to persevere. Manfred successfully escaped. Growing up in a nomadic group, Manfred had more or less learned a few skills. Avoiding conflict was one of them. When the two of them went to the lobby, Creek saw her younger brother tricking the security guard to go into the restaurant. She immediately went to expose her younger brother and dragged him to the parking lot to talk. Connor was worried that his sister was with Manfred, so he followed her to watch. While explaining to his younger brother, Creek suddenly saw a girl with a spider web tattoo. She immediately told her younger brother to wait in the car, then texted everyone to quickly come out and catch the demon. When she saw the demon was about to get in the car and leave, Creek risked running to spray makeup remover on the demon's face. The demon gradually revealed its terrifying appearance, and at this time, everyone was present. They immediately took the demon to a deserted place to deal with it. Connor did not listen to his sister and ran after her to find out, only to see everyone surrounding a beautiful girl. She was writhing on the ground looking very painful, and very quickly the demon revealed its true form. It was an old woman with silver hair. Her clothes were torn and tattered. The demon asked what everyone had done to it. Fiji said that this was the price he deserved for killing so many people. The demon roared, but unexpectedly Lemuel kicked him several times and he lay motionless. Everyone went closer to see. Then the demon suddenly opened his eyes, stretched himself up, and ran away. They planned not to chase him, but from afar they heard Connor's scream. Everyone scattered to search. Then Manfred suddenly remembered something and went back to the car to get it. At this time, Connor was hiding behind a tree, thinking that the demon had not discovered him. But how could he escape? Connor shouted loudly, and everyone finally found him. They wanted to negotiate, but the demon refused. Suddenly Manfred appeared and told Lemuel to take Connor away. Then he took a gas canister and sprayed fire, causing the demon to burn to death on the spot. The town's troubles were solved. Now let's go home and deal with the mess. Olivia wasn't in a bad mood, so she wouldn't kill the stalker. She also had a message for him to deliver. When she was little, her father abandoned her to her stepmother. Then he abandoned the stepmother too. Her stepmother was a drug addict, and in order to have money to buy drugs, she sold Olivia to guys who liked pretty girls. At that time, the so-called father never cared about his daughter, so he sent one person and one died. Sent 100 people and they all died. The stalker was extremely scared. He apologized and promised to never let her see him again. Bobo looked back at himself and what had happened in the past. He realized that, after all that had happened, Fiji was always by his side. And thanks to her, he didn't make mistakes and became better and better. That was when Bobo knew he loved her. What could be more wonderful than when the person you love also loves you? Early in the morning, someone knocked on Manfred's door. There was no one outside, only a music box. There was also a message asking him to meet at the old train station at 10 a.m. Manfred knew that it was Hightower, his creditor. He didn't have enough money to pay. His grandmother suggested that Manfred should find someone to help him, not go there alone. Fiji's wish finally came true. The two were kissing passionately when the cat spoke, which ruined their mood. Fiji suggested that they eat something. At this time, there was the sound of a motorcycle outside. Bobo ran out and saw Lucifer's son setting fire to the pawn shop. He quickly went with everyone to put out the fire to save Lemuel and Olivia. The fire was quickly put out, but Bobo received news that Fiji had been taken away. Not long after, Peter called. Fiji was indeed captured by him. His exchange condition was all of Bobo's weapons and money. Manfred thought about running away again, but this time, he wanted someone to accompany him. Creek really wanted to get away from her father's control, but she couldn't leave her younger brother alone with him. Besides, running away wasn't the life she wanted, so she would think of a way to help him. Manfred sold all of his grandmother's 13th century antiques for $15,000. Bobo generously gave him a gun. On this side, Fiji slowly woke up, but her whole body was still hazy and she couldn't fully wake up. Peter had heard the story from his henchman, so he was prepared. The Fatani patch would make it impossible for her to concentrate on making anything. Not long after, she passed out again. Lemuel woke up and was very angry when he found out touching Olivia was no longer Bobo's personal business. At this time, Peter called and gave the meeting place. When he first arrived, Bobo offered to buy the store in cash. It was clear that he was running away from something. At that time, Lemuel didn't want to know, but now he did. Creek came to find Olivia. Olivia specializes in solving problems, so Creek wanted her to solve Manfred's problems. Bobo led Lemuel to a secret basement hidden under the car. Bobo's parents were very rich, well-connected, but racist. When he discovered they had big plans with the gold and weapons, he took them and fled. The rumors spread, and the basement became a treasure for white supremacist gangs. So Peter sent Aubrey to investigate. Who would have thought that she would fall in love with Bobo? Maybe that's why he had killed her, and now he captured Fiji. Manfred brought the debt money to the meeting point with Hightower. Feeling someone behind, he immediately turned around. It turned out to be Olivia. He saved Lemuel from the vampires, so this time, it was as if she was repaying that debt of gratitude. Manfred said that his grandmother had tricked Hightower out of $100,000. He had already earned $78,000. She would lend him the rest. Now go capture Hightower first. There was a chair in the middle of the room, and someone was sitting on it. Olivia offered to take the debt forgiveness money, otherwise don't blame her for being cruel. However, when he saw who it was, Manfred was extremely surprised. It was Violet, Hightower's daughter. There were a few things that Manfred hadn't told Olivia. One was that he and this girl were engaged, but then he left her alone at the altar and ran away. The other was that Hightower was a psychic with dark magic. Olivia was furious, but they could only run home first and think about it later. Creek asked how things were going. Olivia was still angry and wanted Manfred to explain. It turned out that Manfred and his grandmother had tricked Hightower out of money. The ability to read palms and communicate with spirits was a hereditary power in his family. Hightower was a nomad with no powers. He had traded one of his eyes for telepathy. He wanted to become the ancestor of a powerful family, so Manfred's grandmother made a proposal. Let Manfred marry his daughter and pass on magic to his bloodline. Hightower had given the money before the wedding, so after receiving it, the two of them had run away. A few weeks later, Violet had died. Manfred deeply regretted his actions. Creek could not accept that the person she loved was really a bad person like her father had warned her, and she could not face him at this time. Bobo drove to the meeting place alone as requested. He was picked up by the men from the previous prison. After confirming the goods, they beat him up as a form of revenge. If he had not needed a guide, Lemuel would have rushed out and killed them all. Olivia was angry because she could not contact Lemuel. She was looking for Bobo in Fiji when she was suddenly approached by Hightower. He wanted to know where Manfred was, otherwise the fork would be lying across the old woman. Olivia could not implicate innocent people, so she had no choice but to agree. She led him to a room and suddenly attacked. Manfred had been hiding there before, and then tied him up. Then she closed the door, and the two of them went outside to wait for him to calm down. Bobo was finally brought to Peter. He thought Peter had killed Aubrey, but the way he spoke seemed to miss her very much. Peter warned that if Bobo tried to resist, Fiji would be buried alive. Olivia could help Manfred deal with Hightower, but he would face his own problems. Running away like that was enough. He couldn't let Creek down on him anymore. After he was quiet, Manfred went inside to start negotiating. Although he was very angry with him, Creek was still very worried about Manfred, and when she saw the two of them coming in, she ran over to see if they needed any help. Hightower wanted a life for a life, and Manfred replied that if so, they had been already even. One day after the wedding, Manfred's grandmother fell ill. All those $100,000 were spent on chemotherapy. Everyone lost their loved ones, but Hightower refused because he still got to talk to his grandmother. His daughter Violet could not be revived. Manfred suggested that he help Hightower talk to his daughter so that he could be at peace. Bobo's weapons were all good. Peter was satisfied and took him to Fiji's place. Hightower pointed to a room below. He said that Violet was there, then suddenly pushed Manfred down. Hightower said that when Manfred calmed him down, all this would be over. Otherwise, be friends with Violet down there. Fiji was woken up by Bobo. She quickly told him to put on her patch, but it seemed that Peter didn't intend to let them go. He wanted Bobo to pay for killing his wife. He asked Fiji what he knew about Bobo's family, about himself. If he knew that when the church near Atlanta was bombed, Bobo was standing right at the detonation point. Fiji looked at Bobo suspiciously. Then the two were locked up, not care life or death. After a while, they felt a vibration. It seemed that Lemuel had acted, but the air was getting thinner. Bobo was afraid that he wouldn't make it in time. Manfred took Violet's dry hand and started talking. Immediately, Violet's soul appeared. Manfred apologized for leaving. He didn't think she would leave this world for him, but Violet didn't care and just asked where her father was. On the other side, Fiji was gathering all the air to make the two of them feel more comfortable. Suddenly, there was a strong vibration above. It turned out that the people above were using bazookas to attack Lemuel. Although they didn't kill Lemuel, they did slightly injure him. Back to Manfred, he asked Hightower if he had seen Violet, who was right in front of him, but, of course, he didn't see her. Seeing this, Violet told Manfred to tell her father that Hightower had given her a gift when she died. After hearing Manfred convey the words, Hightower rushed over to ask where his daughter was. Manfred said that she was standing next to him, then asked Violet if she had anything to say. Suddenly, Violet shouted loudly for Hightower to die, which made Manfred extremely confused. On this side, Bobo and Fiji were about to run out of oxygen. Luckily, Lemuel arrived in time. Bobo told Lemuel to put Fiji in the car, and he still had things to do. Suddenly, Peter rushed over to attack Bobo, and the two of them started fighting. After a while of struggling, Bobo finally killed Peter. Fiji told Bobo to hurry up because it was almost almost dawn, Bobo threw a grenade into the pile of weapons, deciding that they would no longer bother him from now on. Manfred was now in a difficult situation. Hightower blamed him for making his daughter like this, and Violet blamed her father for forcing her to marry someone she didn't love. Manfred didn't dare to tell the truth, afraid that Hightower wouldn't forgive him, so he just tried to convince Violet to forgive him. But Violet didn't want to listen to anyone's orders anymore, and immediately entered Manfred's body. Hightower didn't understand what was happening. He only saw Manfred's eyes change. Violet's soul said that he was the one who made her like this, always forcing her to do as he wanted. Even when it came to who she married, she had to listen to his arrangements. Being treated like nothing more than a commodity, Hightower realized that his daughter was blaming him, so he apologized. But Violet didn't want to listen. She went to strangle her father. Manfred tried to regain control of his body. He didn't let her use him to kill people. After saying all his grievances, Violet finally liberated. Unexpectedly, Hightower pushed Manfred aside and then focused all his energy on the glass panels. He had no reason to continue living anymore. After bandaging Lemuel's wound, Olivia angrily scolded him for acting without warning. She warned that if it happened again, she would not talk to him again. Fiji, since returning, has been thinking a lot about Bobo. He explained that when he was 17, his father took him to church with terrible intentions. When Bobo realized it, it was too late. But thanks to that, he understood their personalities. The night they celebrated, he ran away. Too embarrassed, he didn't dare to tell the truth. Fiji couldn't hide her disappointment and said that she needed time to accept this. Manfred's straightforwardness in facing his mistake and correcting it impressed Creek. She also felt sorry for what happened to his grandmother. Through Violet's incident, Creek learned her lesson. She decided to tell her father the truth, that he couldn't force her to live the way he wanted. Moreover, she and Manfred were very serious about this relationship. The problem was solved. Now, Manfred had no reason to run away anymore. He decided to stay in Midnight. But this was just the calm before the storm, because something more terrible was coming. Sometimes on full moon nights, there would be some fearless children who would come to Midnight to cause trouble. The children who came to destroy Fiji's house even tried to damage her plants. Fiji stepped out and shouted at them to go away. The children said a few unpleasant words and then left. After that, they went to the church and spray painted some tombstones. The girl in the group only went along out of curiosity, not daring to do anything. The three were terrified by Lemuel's sudden appearance. They quickly got in their car and ran away, leaving the girl behind. Not daring to stay in town alone, the girl Ajin had to walk back while calling her friend Ryan to turn around. There was a car in the distance. She thought it was her friend returning, until Ajin sensed something strange and quickly turned around and ran away. Unfortunately, she tripped and fell. After that, only Ajin's miserable scream remained. The thinner the curtain, the more supernatural beings were affected by it. The signs were also clearer. Fiji was sleeping when she felt someone's hand under the blanket. It was a demon touching her thigh. She thought it was just a dream until she felt a burning pain on her thigh. Manfred's ghost sightings became more frequent. This made him have to take medicine almost constantly. The cleric also became hungrier, but he knew why. While the two were talking, Ajin's friend from last night came to ask about her. They didn't go out last night, so they didn't see her. Another girl was missing. Fiji asked if anyone had seen anything strange recently. Manfred said that he saw and heard ghosts everywhere. The cleric found a lot of dead animals and insects. Afraid that everyone would realize something, Joe changed the subject and told everyone to split up and take action. Fiji went with the cleric. While they were alone, she told him she heard something calling her. It even touched her. Fiji had a bad feeling about this. It felt like a demon was following her, but she could be wrong. Manfred and Creek were searching the woods. Although they didn't find Ajin, they found the girl in the vampire's car. She survived the vampires, but was killed by a murderer. Manfred touched her to call her spirit. However, the spirit had already released. Bobo had thought a lot about what Peter had said the other day. Maybe he didn't really kill Aubrey. Now that he found this body as well as another missing girl, Bobo was even more certain that his guess was correct. They had to handle this themselves before it got to the authorities. Unfortunately, Ajin's mother was a judge. There would be a full investigation within the next 24 hours. If they didn't want trouble, they had to find Ajin quickly. The cleric had promised to keep Joe's secret, but at this rate, people would think they were crazy. The cleric knew Joe had taken Chewie away from Midnight, but Joe wouldn't say why. To protect his family, he had to continue to hide his identity, which meant that people couldn't know anything, because even if they did, they couldn't stop him. Creek suddenly felt worried about her younger brother. Leaving Connor alone with her father would cause trouble. Suddenly, Manfred heard the screams of the spirit in Connor's room, but he didn't suspect anything, just took medicine to block out the screams. Ever since Creek left for Manfred, her father hated him even more. He even beat him. That was why Creek was so worried about her younger brother when he had to live with an abusive father. She began to regret telling him the truth. Everyone searched all place in Midnight, but there was no sign of Ajin. Suddenly, the three of them saw someone's shadow from afar. Looking closely, it was Creek's younger brother. Connor said he was looking for the missing girl when he was attacked from behind. Fiji thought that it might be a demon. Then she told them about the demon at Manfred's house. At that time, she banished it to the other side of the curtain. What if it didn't return completely? The demons were evil creatures that that didn't belong on Earth. According to Lemuel, Connor being attacked in such a normal way was just a human. Seeing everyone like that, Joe became even more worried. At this time, the cleric knocked on the door. He said that he came here as Emilio, not a man of God, and he would do what he thought was right, hoping everyone would understand. Emilio then told them why Manfred and Fiji felt uneasy. Why were the evil forces attracted to midnight? The veil was getting thinner. The darkest part of each person would rise up and make them lose control. Manfred told Connor to show him where he was beaten. Maybe he would see something. Although there were no spirits lingering there, Lemuel smelled blood. He felt hungry faster these days, so he was more sensitive. The two went to a corner and saw Creek's father holding Ajan in his arms. He tried to run away but was caught by Lemuel, and Ajan was still alive. Manfred went home and told Creek this bad news. They thought he was the one responsible for the recent murders. Creek couldn't believe what she had just heard. She almost collapsed from shock. Since Creek's father moved to this remote place with his two young children, Lemuel had been suspicious. No one would bring family to this place unless they were hiding from something. However, no matter how they speculated, he didn't say anything. Lemuel and Olivia wanted to execute him, but the others didn't agree. Manfred thought that the curtain had brought out the evil in people, so he was like that. Manfred felt that he was hiding something. If he didn't say anything, then let the victim speak. Manfred was about to go into Creek's father's room, but at this moment, he was attracted by the screams in Connor's room. There was a vent under the floor, and the resentment was extremely heavy. There was a box there. Manfred opened it suspiciously and saw the mask of the person who killed Aubrey. It wasn't Creek's father. Her younger brother was the real culprit. He showed the picture to Ajan. She confirmed that this person was the one who kidnapped her. There was also the ring Bobo gave Aubrey in the box. There was no doubt they had to go catch Connor. At this time, Connor and Creek were at Manfred's house, but when Bobo and Manfred arrived, the house was empty. When they called Creek, the phone was off. It seemed that Connor sensed that he was about to be exposed, so he lured his sister away from midnight. Creek didn't know anything, just followed her younger brother. Only then did Creek's father tell them. Creek always wondered why they weren't allowed to have pets. She didn't know that every time the family had a pet, Connor would kill it just because it was fun. He took Connor to the doctor, but when they wanted to keep him, he didn't want to lose this child. That's why he had moved to this deserted place, because he knew that the people here could protect him. That selfish thought had caused innocent people to die. Now, even Connor's sister had been arrested. Creek's father didn't believe that his son would harm his sister. At this time, Creek decided to answer Manfred's phone when suddenly Connor threw her phone away. The younger brother's strange actions made Creek feel uneasy. Manfred was afraid that she might know the truth and put Connor in a difficult position. He didn't dare to think of the worst. He returned home to get the car to look for them, but they didn't know where those two went. Afraid that it would be too late. In order to save Creek, Joe accepted to reveal his identity. With him watching from above, they would know which direction to go. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. The town had an angel, but until now they just found out about. The younger brother's attitude here made Creek suspicious. Connor said that he was just like everyone else in midnight, like the cleric, Lemuel, or Olivia. They also killed people, or even ate people. Creek said that they had never killed any innocent people. They did not hunt or kill for fun. Connor admitted that he was different. He killed for fun. Then he suddenly stepped on the gas and wanted to die with his sister, but Joe appeared in time and stopped it. Connor even wanted to kill his sister. Creek had no hope left. Receiving Joe's nod, Lemuel chased Connor and killed him as quickly as possible. That was too lenient. Poor Creek. How could she get through this shock? A new day came. Fiji helped Ajan heal her wounds without leaving any scars. Bobo told Ajan that they had dealt with the culprit. Hopefully what just happened should not be known to others. Otherwise, this place would be burned down. Ajan said that she would tell them that she was injured and was helped by a group of strange but kind midnight people. Then Ajan's mother came to pick her up. Although Creek only had her father as a relative now, she would never forgive him. He had chosen Connor and covered up the evil things he had done. The father said that Connor was his son. Creek became even angrier when she heard that. She said that the people killed by Connor didn't have parents. He was her father, but he never thought about Creek, so don't beg her to think about him. Being betrayed by her only two relatives at the same time, Creek was in great pain. Seeing her cry silently, Manfred was heartbroken. He hugged her, hoping that his warmth could make her feel better. The cleric thought that Joe would be very angry with him, but he wasn't at all. However, the moment Joe used the angel light to save Creek, it meant that he had revealed his location to the thing that was searching for him. The cleric reassured Joe that they were still here. They were willing to help him solve the problem. Joe called Chewie and told him not to return to midnight. Once people knew who Choi was, they would kill Joe and destroy Choi. War was coming, and Joe would stay to fight. The barren land, filled with smoke and fire, had been the midnight of a millennium ago. When the curtain opened, the demons had ravaged and killed many people. This was also where Joe had learned how to fight and destroy demons, but later Joe had realized that he did not like killing, so he left. That had made Bowie, his teacher and an angel with a passion for destroying demons, extremely angry. Joe's use of the angel light a few days ago revealed his location to Bowie. Not wanting to be immersed in suffering forever, Creek wanted to go back to work at the restaurant. Although Manfred advised her to rest more, she had already made up her mind. Fiji also didn't want to hear the demon at home calling her every now and then, so she also went to the restaurant to relax. Surprisingly, that Chui returned to midnight. He wasn't at ease with Joe here alone. After all, everyone already knew what had happened, so he might as well tell them everything and ask for their help. Manfred wanted to try to summon Creek's mother. Maybe he could help her a little. His grandmother advised him not to try anything. What if her mother was as evil as her younger brother? It was better to just stay by her side and comfort her. In order not to make Creek think she was being watched, he used the excuse that there were too many ghosts at home to take refuge here. Fortunately, she didn't suspect anything. After the incident with Connor, the people in town were more discreet. From that day on, both Manfred and Fiji did not see Joe again. Fiji heard that Joe was being hunted. Manfred was curious who wanted to capture him. At this time, Bowie had come to the church. Hearing her say she wanted to find Joe, the cleric immediately became alert. He suddenly attacked her, but she was not hurt. Without saying much, Bowie used her mind-reading ability on the cleric. Having got what she needed, she threw him away so that he could not stand up anymore. By chance, Manfred saw Bowie coming out of the church and staring at the tattoo shop. Manfred immediately called Joe to report. Seeing that it was Bowie, Joe immediately became panicked. But Chui had a plan to deal with it. Bowie kicked the door open, but the result was that there was not a single person in the place. Manfred informed them of Bowie's whereabouts. At the critical moment, Joe and Chui had managed to hide in Olivia's safe room. Joe told everyone to come here as soon as possible, but didn't say why, to avoid being mind-read by Bowie. Then Bobo and Fiji came one by one. When everyone was enough, Joe would announce it all at once. Manfred had just left the house when he encountered Bowie, so he turned around and left. In the car, he asked his grandmother for help this time. Manfred wore glasses to cover his soul eyes so that his grandmother could enter him. So when Bowie came and used mind reading, all she saw was Manfred's grandmother's complicated life. As soon as she left, his grandmother left her body. Manfred finally arrived at the pawn shop. Only the cleric hadn't arrived yet, but Lemuel was running out of patience. Joe told him that he had done something that Bowie couldn't forgive, which was loving a devil. Chui had a human mother and a demon father. The mother was the one who taught Chui how to control the demon inside him. Fiji and Lemuel were not pleased that they kept this secret, as they only revealed it when an immortal angel came to town wanting to tear it apart. But since Joe saved Creek, Manfred would help them get through this ordeal. But the problem was that angels could not be killed by humans, but demons can. However, the last time Chui transformed, it took 3 years for him to return to normal. Moreover, when he turned into a demon, he could no longer distinguish between them. Manfred had an idea. Send the angel to hell for the demons there to deal with Bowie. They could use a mirror to create a portal and push Bowie through the other side of the curtain. Lemuel was starting to get bored with the secrets. Hearing this, Olivia thought that there was one thing she should make clear to him. This love of theirs had an expiration date. Lemuel would be like this forever. But she wouldn't, so when the time was right, she would leave. Of course, Olivia could choose to transform, but she didn't want immortality, so they should enjoy it while they could. This was the finger of Manfred's uncle. Legend had it that he pushed a demon back to hell with this. As soon as he touched it, his finger fell off. Suddenly, Joe asked if Manfred thought that his coming here was not a coincidence. Creek had worked hard all day. She just wanted to go to church to sit for a while, but found the cleric passed out on the floor. When Creek waited for him to return to the restaurant, it was the moment Bowie was reading Madonna's mind. Creek wanted to run away, but it was too late. On this side, Joe told Manfred about the prophecy, and Joe believed that Manfred was the psychic who would lead an army to fight the demons and seal the veil forever. Of course, Manfred didn't believe it. Creek called at this time, but the person who spoke was Bowie. She gave him half an hour to find Joe and bring him there. Otherwise, she would kill people. Normally, angels didn't do that, but Bowie was furious. The plan began. First, Manfred needed Joe to surrender. Poor Creek, who was depressed because of family matters, was provoked by Bowie, making her even more miserable. Seeing the way Bowie tormented others, the cleric realized that she was also a fallen angel. At this moment, Joe called out to her loudly. Bowie excitedly pulled Creek out, got what she needed, and threw Creek aside. Joe lured her into talking to buy time for Fiji to open the gates of hell, and the others got into position. As soon as Fiji was done, Manfred took out the mirror. Lemuel rushed to push Bowie into it, but unexpectedly, the distance was just enough for her to destroy the mirror before falling into it. Manfred quickly used his finger to summon his ancestors, but not only was it useless, Bowie also read his mind. She insulted him for having the illusion that he could stop hell from swallowing the town. Bowie grabbed Manfred's hair and dragged him away. At this moment, Joe appeared and sent Bowie flying. She flew back in a rage. Joe was not as strong as Bowie. Sooner or later, he would die by her hands. Chui was extremely worried. He was about to lose control. The two wrestled in the church. Bowie had been very proud of his favorite student, but then he ran away with a demon. Standing in front of her, Joe had no strength to fight back. She knocked him out and let his friends witness the death of an angel. But at this moment, Chui had completely transformed. He rushed forward and pushed Bowie down. The others immediately left. Before he could attack them, Bowie couldn't escape Chui's control. She was finally bitten to death by him. The blood made Chui even more insane. He pushed Joe aside and ran towards Lemuel and Fiji. Lemuel wanted to absorb energy to weaken him, but it was clear that the devil's energy was not a good thing. Manfred drew attention to help Lemuel. He hid in a hidden corner. It seemed that Chewie didn't chase after him. He couldn't see it on this side. He looked again, and Chewie suddenly appeared, forcing Manfred to continue running. At the critical moment, Joe rushed forward and hugged Chewie from behind. Joe used angelic light to threaten and kept calling Chewie to wake up. Finally, Chewie gradually turned back into a human and hugged Joe. Sobbing, Creek wanted to be alone, so she told Manfred to stay with everyone. She could go home by herself. Joe took Chewie home to rest and told Manfred to remember to stop by because they still had things to talk about. Before leaving, Chewie did not forget to apologize to everyone. Joe showed Manfred the drawing of the prophecy. The scene was truly tragic, but Manfred did not think he could do anything. He could not even stop Bowie and Chewie, so how could he protect the world from the demons of hell? The town kept having problems, making Fiji very upset. Everything was too much. The feeling of helplessness made her even worse. Bobo told her to go inside and rest. He would clean up for her and always be here when she needed him. Although she had not forgiven Bobo, Fiji really needed a break, so she agreed. The curtain was increasingly affecting Chewie, forcing Joe to quickly take him out of town. After much thought, Creek decided to break up because it was better for both of them. They didn't break up because they weren't compatible but because Creek didn't have the heart to continue the relationship. The reason Manfred stayed in town was her. Now that she didn't need him anymore, he would leave. At a parish cemetery, the priest came to ask a man, but unexpectedly he was killed on the spot and his face was peeled off. After covering the skin, the man had this priest's appearance and voice. He muttered that the priest's sacrifice would bring life to the master and the gates of hell would open. He then loaded the priest's body onto his cart and headed towards midnight. The veil was gradually exerting a strong influence on the supernatural in the town. After Chewie, it was Lemuel's turn to change. He became hungrier than usual and almost couldn't control himself. The same was true for the cleric. Although he was usually a vegetarian, today he wanted to eat meat and realized his abnormality, but no one knew how to stop these changes. Fiji almost went crazy when the demon kept calling her name. When asked who it was, it just told her to wait. At this time, there was a knock on the door. It was Fiji's aunt. Lately, her mood had not been good. Negative thoughts were always appearing, so she wanted Fiji to help her relax her mind. Fiji happily invited her in, thinking that at least she could temporarily forget about that demon. Elsewhere, Manfred's grandmother kept advising him to come back, but he refused. The grandmother was disappointed in Manfred, and even more disappointed in herself. She thought that it was her fault that Manfred had become the way he was. Manfred's psychic abilities were strong, but his communication with ghosts since childhood made him look weird. So he went to live with his grandmother to be taught by her. They lived in a house on wheels, and his grandmother always told them that if they got into trouble, they could go anywhere. However, the car broke down in the middle of nowhere, with no houses or people around. Manfred was about to go crazy. Back in Fiji, her aunt was feeling better and wanted to buy a magic knife to decorate the kitchen, but Fiji refused. When she went into the garden to get some things, Bobo was sweeping the yard when he saw Fiji's aunt holding a knife with a very unstable look. Just as she stabbed herself, Fiji rushed to grab the knife. Fiji's aunt kept screaming that she had to die. Back at Manfred, he was in a desperate situation. There was no signal on his phone, no food or water, and most importantly, no medicine. The nearest gas station was 4 hours away. Manfred had no choice but to walk. Meanwhile, Fiji's aunt told that a voice was ringing in her head, telling her that if she died, things would be better. Fiji asked her if the voice felt distant and sinister. As soon as she confirmed it, Fiji immediately asked her to leave midnight immediately and only return when it was safe. As the veil became thinner, more dark energy was released, causing the voice to grow louder and stronger. Fiji speculated that it absorbed death to increase its power, which also explained why small animals kept dying in front of the church. It chose Fiji's aunt because she was vulnerable. Fiji worried that if they didn't get there in time, it might be too late. She accepted the demon's targeting of her, but she worried about the others because they are unable to fight back. Thinking of this, Fiji became even angrier and determined to take action. Manfred continues walking in the dark, but after many hours, there is still no sign of houses or cars. Meanwhile, on the way to midnight, the man who killed the priest continues to harvest more people and decided to move to a larger car to accommodate more. At the restaurant, Lemuel came to have dinner with Olivia. Creek was struggling with pain and wanted Lemuel to help her drain her energy. However, Olivia refused on his behalf because the hunger was making Lemuel more sensitive than ever. Lemuel felt uncomfortable when Olivia made decisions for him, especially when she had already decided to leave. Incidentally, when mentioning that, Lemuel begged Olivia that, when she left, she should give him something more than just a note. It was dark, the temperature dropped sharply, combined with hunger and exhaustion, causing Manfred to collapse on the road. In his delirium, he remembered his grandmother and her final moments. Suddenly, his grandmother's voice woke him up. His grandmother reminded him that before she died, she had a strong premonition of the future. In that moment, she saw midnight burning, people dying everywhere, and Manfred standing at the center of the chaos. His grandmother reminded him that since he was young, Manfred had the ability to control souls, but she did not teach him how to use it because she believed that he could find his own path. She said that the upcoming battle might cost Manfred his life, but everyone must die. What mattered was how he chose to live. His grandmother said that she was confined to the car, and if she left it, she would disappear from the world completely. Just then, a car passed by, and she urged Manfred to continue. When he turned around, his grandmother was gone. Whether it was luck or misfortune, Manfred happened to get into the car of the man who killed the priest. As soon as he got in, he felt a sharp pain in his head. Looking back, he was horrified by the wandering spirits around the car. He talked to the man to distract him, while listening to the spirits recount what had happened. Finally, Manfred came up with a plan. During the struggle, he was kicked off the car by the man. Despite the pain, Manfred still managed to get up and run into the night. Olivia couldn't admit that she had no confidence in this fight, and that made her scared. Lemuel offered to help her ease that feeling. However, the hunger and thirst grew stronger and stronger, causing Lemuel to lose control. He tried to bite Olivia's neck. Sensing danger, Olivia immediately reacted. She pulled out a silver knife and stabbed Lemuel, bringing him back to his senses in horror. Fiji was currently making a medicine. This medicine would help people avoid being possessed by the demon. The man who killed the priest searched for a while and couldn't find Manfred, so he got in the car and left. He didn't know when Manfred had snuck into the car. However, lying among the corpses like this was really scary. He unconsciously asked his grandmother what to do, forgetting that she had already liberated. He rummaged through the pockets of the corpses and luckily found a phone that still worked. Manfred immediately called Fiji, saying that a supernatural being was on his way to their place to sacrifice the dead, helping the demon under midnight rise. Fiji also told him what had just happened in town. Hearing her say that vulnerable people were easily controlled by the demon, Manfred was extremely worried about Creek. Fiji called her, but Creek turned off her phone. At the pawn shop, Olivia and Lemuel, who had just been peaceful for a moment, started arguing again. He wanted to turn her into a vampire so that they would never have to be apart again. But Olivia had suffered too many bad things in this life. If she were immortal, it would be like torturing herself forever. However, Lemuel had begun to lose control, and his dark side had taken over his mind. For the first time, he used force on her. Olivia suddenly stabbed Lemuel in the chest. Of course, it didn't touch the heart, because it was just a warning. If there was a third time, she wouldn't hold back anymore. But he really didn't want to let her go. Olivia quickly ran back to her room and locked all the doors. At this time, outside midnight, the man dumped a pile of corpses on the street. Manfred took the opportunity to run to Creek's house just in time to stop her from leaving this world. Just like Fiji's aunt, she kept asking to die and wouldn't listen to anyone. Fiji had no choice but to give her the magic water she had just created. After Creek was no longer under the demon's control, Fiji urged Manfred to go save the others. Lemuel kicked open the door and entered the bedroom. Olivia, who was hiding on the roof, suddenly attacked. The two began to fight. Of course, Olivia was no match for a vampire, but that didn't mean she would stand still and be bitten. She took out all the silverware to fight him, but in the end, Olivia was still sent flying by Lemuel. When she was about to be bitten, Manfred appeared in time and waved magic water to help Lemuel wake up. Outside, the man had just poured gasoline on the corpses. He was about to light the fire when everyone stopped him. He told Fiji that when the master rose, she would be his, because he had chosen her. Suddenly, Fiji heard the demon calling her. The ground gradually cracked and hellfire engulfed the corpses. The man broke free and rushed to grab Fiji. Manfred risked controlling the spirits to capture the man and drag him down to hell. The ground returned to normal. The bodies also disappeared. In the end, they still couldn't stop him. The pile of witch books tired Fiji, and she fell asleep without realizing it. In her dream, she followed the demon's call and saw a spirit. It said that the master was coming to take her away. Joe told Manfred what he knew about the curtain. The last time it opened, when he and Bowie came, this place was filled with war. Demons were everywhere, spreading death and pain. He didn't distinguish them by name. He killed all the demons, so he didn't know what kind of demon Kokona was. At this moment, Fiji's voice was heard outside. They thought she was sleepwalking. Only she could see that spirit. It said it knew the truth about Fiji. It knew she brought death to the person she loved. She was mad and wanted to burn it. Only when Lemuel appeared and sucked the energy did Fiji wake up, but she was sure she hadn't been sleepwalking just then. Wait for her to calm down, and Manfred asked what she meant when she told the soul not to speak anymore. Fiji avoided his gaze, only saying that it would dedicate her to Kokona. She also didn't know why it targeted her. Just then, she had been too emotional and almost burned everyone. Not only Kokona, Fiji was also a threat to herself and them. Therefore, they had to take turns watching her. After yesterday's incident, Lemuel and Olivia still didn't spoke again. Lemuel had to sleep behind the pawn shop. Everyone had their own terrible secrets and fled to midnight. Fiji was different. Her secret had happened there. 10 years ago, she had broken the school window and burned down the hospital room because she had broken up with her boyfriend. Fiji had been sent to her aunt's place in midnight by her mother for a while. After hearing the story, her aunt had said that Fiji seemed to be a witch like her. They could change the materials around them according to their intentions or moods. The grandmother had left Manfred the ancestors' demon-slaying handbook. However, since it was written in Romani, it had taken a while for it to be translated. Joe said that the last time the curtain was torn, a magician named Katoni had sealed it. His whole body was covered in strange-looking tattoos and marks, and he sealed the curtain with his own life. alive. Katoni's body had then been broken into many pieces and burned. Joe had buried him under the church. Manfred wanted to summon the magician's spirit. Joe told him that if he wanted to do something, he had to hurry, as the sandstorm was a sign that the curtain had opened. While the cleric was warning the others in town, Manfred went to the restaurant and told Creek and everyone to leave before the sandstorm arrived. Even though this was a supernatural war, it was difficult for ordinary people to help. Afterwards, the cleric, Joe, and Manfred went down to the basement under the church and began digging Katoni's grave. Creek was leaving town. However, the sandstorm caused her to lose her vision. A sign suddenly hit the windshield, startling her and causing her to lose control of the steering wheel. As a result, Creek hit her head on the steering wheel, but it was only a superficial wound. She wrapped a scarf around her nose and mouth. Then she went out to check the car. While waiting for the other three to dig up the remains, Olivia and Bobo went to Fiji's house to watch her. Fiji deliberately said cruel words to make Bobo ignore her, but he knew it. As long as there was danger, he would still be here. Looking at the chest in the corner of the room, memories flooded back. She curiously opened it but was stopped by her aunt. She said that only when she was ready could she touch dark magic. Now, she would teach her how to use it, starting with planting flowers. The strength of magic depends on emotions. If emotions are not controlled, it will cause destruction. While staring blankly at the door, Fiji discovered a spirit. When she called Bobo and Olivia, it was gone, but they still ran out to see what was going on. There was indeed a spirit. At the church, they finally dug up Katoni, but it had been too long. Now, he was nothing but dust. At this moment, there was gunfire outside. An army of spirits followed the sand into town. The three of them rushed back to Fiji's house and found Bobo injured. Joe knew that their presence meant Kokona was coming. Bobo had been shot and stabbed before, but he had never felt pain like this. Fortunately, Fiji's homemade ointment helped him feel better. The house could temporarily block out spirits, but not demons like Kokona. If he rose, they would surely die. Manfred thought that the only way to stop it was to leave for now. Take some time to discuss, come up with a new plan, then come back to kill Kokona and his minions. It made sense, so the cleric and Joe went to get the car. Olivia reminded Manfred not to forget to wake up that vampire. On this side, Creek was happy to have fixed the car. Seeing that the sandstorm in the direction of midnight had subsided, she decided to return. Fiji had finished preparing all her belongings, but her cat had run away. Every time there was a storm, the cat would hide. During one of her trips to find the cat, Fiji met Jeremy, a resident of Midnight. Because they were going out during the day, Lemuel had to wrap himself up. To make him comfortable, they used the vampire's car. Fiji couldn't leave the cat behind. Seeing this, Manfred told her to go first. He would catch up later if he found it. Manfred went to the greenhouse to look for it and found the cat there. Without saying much, he quickly grabbed it and put it in the cage. Just as he was about to be surrounded by the spirits, Creek suddenly appeared. The two quickly ran after the bus. Knowing that she had returned because she was worried about everyone, especially him, Manfred was very touched. Everyone was safe for the time being, but Bobo had a feeling that Fiji was hiding something from them. However, she refused to say any word. No one knew that she and Jeremy were being in love. When they showed their affection, Fiji's aunt saw it. She stopped them. Fiji still couldn't control her power. Until then, she had to protect her heart well. The bus finally got through the sandstorm, but Manfred noticed that it was chasing them. He told Creek to drive faster. They had to create some distance from it. Bobo told the cleric to turn onto the road ahead. He knew a place where they could take temporary refuge, the cartoon bar. It was a secluded place with no windows, so they could avoid the sandstorm. Only then did Fiji say that it wasn't chasing everyone but her. At this point, they were about to lose their patience. Everyone wanted to know why she was the target. They were here to protect her, so they needed to know the truth. It turned out that Fiji was a virgin. She was strong enough, but being old and a virgin was much stronger and very rare, so Kokona wanted to capture her. This was a very humiliating thing. Fiji didn't have the courage to face everyone, but there was still one thing she hadn't told. That was, Fiji continued to love Jeremy despite her aunt's objections. After 3 months of knowing each other, the two decided to have sex. However, the burning feeling of excitement caused Fiji to lose control. Her magic accidentally burned Jeremy from the inside. Despite her efforts to do everything she knew and revive him with magic, Jeremy still did not survive. Olivia took the initiative to talk to Lemuel. Ignoring everything, she still loved him. That's why Olivia wanted to announce that after Fiji was safe, she would leave Midnight. Olivia had never stayed in one place for too long because she didn't want her father to find her, and because of her older brother, she stayed in Midnight longer than expected. Olivia didn't want to cry, but tears kept falling. Lemuel asked her if she wanted his help, but Olivia refused because she had to learn to deal with them without Lemuel from now on. The notebook had been partially translated, and it contained some curses that Ancestor Manfred had used to subdue demons. Fiji recognized it as the Nomad's dark magic. She thought that if she combined it with the witch's dark magic, they would get the answer. However, because it was dark magic, it needed a sacrifice, not just a finger or an eye, but a life. The cleric volunteered to sacrifice himself, but everyone else disagreed. At this point, the cat said to take its life. The cat was very old and just wanted to reunite with Fiji's aunt. The 7 years living with Fiji were the most boring 7 years of the cat's life. Fiji accepted this request. The cat sat in the middle of the 5-pointed star, then Fiji sprinkled blood around the cat. Fiji offered to offer this life in exchange for the answer. As soon as she finished speaking, a black smoke came out of her mouth and enveloped the cat. But the dead person was Manfred. He just died. His whole body was cold, his eyes wide open. Everything happened so suddenly. Creek couldn't believe it was true. She rested her head on Manfred's body and waited for him to wake up. Manfred was now in midnight. He felt very peaceful for some reason. Here he met the magician Katoni. He said that this was the realm of the dead. Manfred asked him to show him how to seal the curtain. Katoni came and whispered in his ear. Fiji followed the call outside. Kokona sent Jeremy to pick her up because Kokona knew she would listen to Jeremy. Jeremy gave her a choice: to sacrifice herself and no one would die, or no one would survive. Everyone was grieving over Manfred's sudden death when he woke up. Fiji's spell worked and he got the answer. But then everyone realized that Fiji was nowhere to be seen. She didn't want to involve everyone, so she chose to follow Jeremy. After spending the night with Jeremy, Fiji finally arrived at midnight, where the sandstorm had just cleared. Everyone immediately got in the car and chased after her. On the way, Joe told her that the last time the demons came out of the curtain, they used women to reproduce. That was also what Kokona wanted to do to Fiji. Bobo wouldn't let that happen. He would protect her to the end. Midnight was full of animal corpses without a trace of life. Suddenly, the ground under Fiji's feet cracked. Jeremy said that the master would come tonight and wanted her to return and bathe to welcome him. He also sent a group of spirits to guard her until then. Katoni told Manfred that tonight was the night of the blood moon, when the first demon would rise. He and his grandmother never told fortunes on these days because it was the most mystical time, attracting evil things. He assigned Creek, Olivia, and Bobo to find Fiji and protect her until Kokona disappeared. How to deal with that demon, they did not need to know. However, they still needed weapons to fight the spirits. The cleric would enchant ordinary items to become effective against them. Creek asked Manfred, but he refused to tell her how to deal with Kokona, only promising her that he would not die. Fiji still hoped that Jeremy had some of his old self left, but he did not hesitate to hurt her. It was clear that the person she once loved was no longer there, just a corpse controlled by Kokona. Jeremy said that she was no different from the master, possessing the power to destroy and kill. Fiji was in great pain when she heard these words. She no longer wanted to resist. Perhaps only when she died, all suffering would end. The seven of them had returned to midnight. The plan was to protect Fiji, kill the demon, close the gate to hell, and no one would die. The spirits were carrying the animal corpses back to the church. Manfred's group would distract them so that Bobo's group could go to Fiji's house. Lemuel shot arrows soaked in holy water. Although the effect was not long-lasting, they successfully attracted a group of spirits. But there were still a few lingering in front of Fiji's house. Olivia went up high to support the other two and would come later. Seeing their actions, Manfred's group immediately ran into the pawn shop. With Olivia's support, Creek and Bobo successfully entered the house. But it was her turn to be caught by Jeremy. The pain made Olivia collapse on the spot. Fiji chased Jeremy away so that Bobo could quickly take Olivia into the house. She tried to hold back the pain so that she wouldn't scream out of her throat. Manfred was searching for something in the antiques at the pawn shop, and he was drawn to the spirits. Joe had to call out several times before he heard. Katoni said that to fight demons, one had to understand them, so he had to find demons as bad as Kokona. Fiji's ointment could cure her and Bobo, but Olivia's burns were too deep. Fiji was afraid she wouldn't be able to help Olivia. Fiji would give her some painkillers first. At this time, Manfred called. Olivia wouldn't let Creek tell them. She didn't want them to be distracted, especially Lemuel. Creek decided not to say anything and told them to just focus on their work. Suddenly, Manfred said he loved Creek because he was afraid he would never be able to speak again. Lemuel had found some ancient demons for Manfred. A man found this. When he had got home, he had murdered his family of 7 and said he had been controlled by 3 demons. Next was an iron spider used to torture witches. Too many souls made Manfred's head a bit chaotic. Lemuel wanted to know what he would do when he found the right demon. Manfred said he would let it possess him. Because he was mentally prepared to die in this war, Manfred didn't say anything to Creek. At this time, Manfred noticed a chipped doll. On Fiji's side, she thought Olivia needed to be taken to the hospital immediately. She would die at this rate. Creek would take her away, leaving Bobo to protect Fiji. They quickly got Olivia into the car and let Creek take her away. Lemuel felt heavy for some reason, like he was about to lose everything. He didn't know Olivia was in trouble, so he just thought he was worrying about the fight. Only Fiji and Bobo were left. Bobo wanted to know what her plan was. Fiji said she would give herself to Kokona, wait until he wanted to have sex with her, then she would kill him, like she had killed Jeremy. Fiji's power was destruction, so she would do what it was meant to do. Manfred had never been possessed by a demonic spirit. Lemuel was worried that Manfred wouldn't be able to control it, but whether they did or didn't, they would die, so they might as well give it a try. It was getting dark. The moon was about to rise. The cleric had to stay away, so Lemuel and Joe would stay by Manfred's side, only to see him chanting the spell. Countless demons gradually appeared and surrounded him. Manfred said that any demon who wanted to escape from this place could make a deal with him. Hearing that, they entered Manfred's body one by one. On this side, Olivia and Creek left smoothly because they were not the target of the spirits. Olivia had a bad feeling. She needed Creek to tell Lemuel that she would definitely come back to find him. On Fiji's side, Bobo thought that Fiji's plan would not work. He had a better idea. Kokona wanted to take Fiji because she was a virgin, so it would fine if she lost her virginity. Fiji was shocked when she heard Bobo's words. Bobo said that from the first day Fiji had entered the pawn shop, he had loved her, but she was too perfect, so he didn't dare to show his feelings. Fiji had also thought about having sex with Bobo, but not in this situation. But under the power of love, the two gradually exchanged passionate kisses. Dusk gradually fell. Darkness gradually covered the town. At the moment when the moon turned red, Kokona rose. Manfred also appeared to fight. Both sides continuously displayed their strength. On this side, the spirits wanted to capture Fiji but were stopped by Joe. She was hesitant at this moment, afraid that she would cause another tragedy. But Bobo volunteered. At least he could die in happiness. Convinced by his sincerity, Fiji decided to give him everything she had. At the moment Fiji and Bobo's climax, the demon immediately sensed it. It screamed and began to destroy everything. The demons in Manfred's body were still not enough for him to do anything to Kokona. Lemuel had no choice but to run home to get another demonic object for him to borrow. The sixth demon was really strong. Not only did Manfred fight head-on, but he also overpowered Kokona. In the end, he was beaten back to hell. While Manfred was still in control, he also forced the demons inside him down to hell. They had finished dealing with Kokona. Bobo also told Lemuel the truth. The doctor said Olivia had a burn infection and was not responding to antibiotics and might not make it through the night. Not long after, Manfred went with Lemuel to the hospital. Lemuel rushed into the hospital room and dripped his blood into Olivia's mouth. It would help her become stronger and healthier without becoming a vampire. Outside the hospital room, Madonna was reporting Olivia's condition to Fiji's father. She had really hidden it very well. After Olivia had fully recovered, she and Lemuel decided to get married. With the blessing of the Midnight Residents, the two officially became husband and wife. Chewie no longer felt the veil. It seemed that Manfred had really sealed it. From that day on, Fiji and Bobo couldn't stay away from each other for too long. No matter how much they loved each other, it was never enough. Manfred had saved everyone. His grandmother would be proud of him. Even though everything was over, Manfred still felt restless. The next morning, Manfred even had an unexplained ear bleed. Suddenly, the ground shook. Creek felt it too. Everyone went outside and saw a team of workers and a pile of machines. As soon as they stepped outside, a woman in a red shirt came over to greet them. Her name was Melanie. She worked for a hotel management company and was also the new owner of the hotel in town. They were going to renovate it and turn it into a tourist attraction. That was the entire content of the movie. Thank you for watching. Hello and see you in the next videos. Bye.